I mean, a lot of people are anticipating that. My phone was literally ringing off the hook, and I was speaking with trade attorneys as well as businesses, both large and small, in anticipation of such ruling. But remember also, too, it might be a combination of either all of the tariffs are illegal or some of them are illegal. But there are other things that importers are frantically doing now in anticipation of whatever the Supreme Court decides. And that's because the U.S. Had an executive order signed by President Trump back in March for the government to revitalize its payment system. Now, believe it or not, it used to be manual. And starting now, it's going to be electronic. And so on January 2nd, U.S. Customs put out an alert alerting all U.S. importers that they have to register now on this site so they can get refunded in terms of any type of refund that they're looking at. Now, Marty, when it comes to refunds, it could also be set aside from tariffs. It could be from overpayment or things like that. And so it's really a big deal here in the U.S. and attorneys are trying to make sure that companies are in line with, with this new system. And, it's a wait and see, but it's just the beginning of this, because if the Supreme Court does rule that it's illegal, it then gets kicked over to another government entity that has the legal authority, the CTS, in terms of how that refund will be paid. So we're just in the beginning stages of this. And we both know from the president that if they are deemed illegal, they already have a plan B. And so importers are still worried that there's going to be continued uncertainty in paying whatever new tariffs that might come if these tariffs are deemed illegal.
Yeah, and I do want to get to the Venezuelan story with you, Lorianne, but really quickly on the tariffs. So do you, I really appreciate the work that you've been doing, really tracking the global shipping ground. And ahead of the Supreme Court's decision, do you get a sense that people in the industry, the traders, the shippers are actually holding their breath and making some moves or pausing some of this stuff right now?
Oh, they most definitely have, Chery. I mean, when I recently did my supply chain survey, they were saying that they were holding back, on hiring in placing new orders. I mean, we have some sad stories where people had to pull back 30% of their inventory for the holiday because they couldn't afford to bring it in. And then get this, I was talking to another small businessman today saying, I am never going to be made whole because they couldn't afford the tariffs, so Customs has them buying bonds. And so he has over $700,000 tied up in bonds that are not interest paying. So he literally has money sitting there that could be used to boost his business or grow his business, and it's sitting there not even growing. And so the unintended consequences, even if they get their money back, they're never going to be made whole as a result of what they've gone through over these past 9 months.
Yeah, and moving on to the Venezuelan story, I mean, it's been quite a week for international freight. First, the U.S. declares a plan to sell millions of barrels of Venezuelan oil. And then the dramatic scenes in the Atlantic as U.S. Special Forces intercepted a Russian-flagged vessel. What's your take on this situation? How can investors make sense of all this?
They really need to read the news. I mean, the day before or the night before that this actually went down, I actually reported on what Lloyd's List was diving into. Russia has been reflagging vessels that are tied to Venezuelan oil. They reflagged 10 vessels alone in December, Chery. And we're looking at an additional 40 vessels added to the dark fleet of Russia since June. Now, one of the vessels that you mentioned was the Marinera. That originally was the Bella 1, which we talked about not too long ago, on Squawk here. And there are 2 other vessels investors need to be aware of that are Russian flagged. One is the Hyperion. That vessel was reflagged shortly after the Marinera. It is now on its way back to Russia empty. It is important to note that a lot of these reflags are empty and they're going back to Russia to move either Russian oil or Iranian oil. Both, of course, are sanctioned. There's also another vessel in the Caribbean that is Russian flagged, and that too, the Premier, that's the name of that vessel. That vessel is filled with Venezuelan oil. Do not be shocked if we start hearing in the coming days that the U.S. Coast Guard has seized that vessel as well. And remember, one of the times we were talking about the Panama-U.S. relationship in terms of being able to seize vessels. Well, one of those vessels, the other vessel that was seized yesterday, was a Panamanian flag. And there are definite other Panamanian flagged vessels that are in that area. So I think we are in the beginning stages, Chery, in terms of the U.S. leaning in and seizing these vessels.
Yeah, just the beginning stages. I mean, Lorianne, one of the things we're watching out for as well is Friday stateside and tonight our time. We're going to be listening out for what comes out of those meetings between the president and Big Oil. They're going up to meet him, right? And this is to do with his plan to hopefully subsidize reinvestment by Big Oil into Venezuela. But the whole thing about getting $2 billion worth of Venezuelan crude back stateside to the Gulf refineries, et cetera, is not going to be that easy, because the exit point, the Venezuelan ports themselves, is not just the oil infrastructure. I know you've been doing a lot of channel checking. The port facilities are equally sort of badly maintained or even dilapidated, right?
Most definitely, Martin. I've been speaking with sources, and it makes sense. Like, if you have to revitalize all of these oil fields, you're going to need freight to come in. We're talking about thousands of different types of containers, and it's going to be heavy bulk material, so you need cranes. And what my sources are telling me is that the ports need desperate infrastructure. Now, remember, the port is not just the port itself; it's also the roads that lead to and from the port, and the trucking. You need people. People move trade. And so you really have to look at the totality, the bones of the infrastructure in order to receive this freight. And so it is going to be a massive heavy lift when it comes to revitalizing the oil fields, because, like you point out, the entry point and the exit point also need to be fortified, because you're going to be moving more oil as well, and that means more tankers are going to be coming in.
Yeah, I want to circle back, Lorianne, before I let you go. I know you're busy, right? And it's evening where you are, so you've probably got better things to do. But I want to circle back to what's going on with what is likely to happen with the SCOTUS decision. The deadline for companies to file is February the 6th, which leaves them less than a month. But as you alluded to just minutes ago, the Trump administration, they've got Plan B in place and ready to go should that SCOTUS ruling go against them. In fact, there's probably like almost half a dozen other ways they could pursue tariffs, right? Mm-hmm. So how's this going to go in terms of the timing when companies don't know what the ruling is going to be like, and what happens if they pursue Plan B?
Well, the business owners that I'm speaking with, they have two options, right? Either be cemented in the uncertainty, which means, you're probably going to go under because you're not investing in your business or making orders, right? So you can sell things. They're filing. In the end, you have to file in this new system in order to get any type of payment back from customs. So they're all making sure that they're getting into the system. They've got their fingers crossed that these tariffs would be, deemed illegal, and then they would get paid. Now, to give you the sense of the number, back in December, Customs, told me, where I broke the news that the $200 billion mark in tariffs paid by the new tariffs that were instituted finally crossed. You're looking at a tremendous amount of money. And so that's also the reason why it was so important for the U.S. government to move forward to modernize this payment system. So yes, they may get their money back from this tranche of tariffs, but heaven only knows what is coming down the pike. And because of that, they can't plan. And so companies are telling me they are continuing to lay off. And I'm going to have a news story out shortly about how manufacturers actually started pulling back more jobs. And so you've had some significant losses in that area, all as a result of the tariffs. They can't afford that big payment. So what they're doing is that they're cutting people. And it's an unfortunate side effect.